Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, we're going to call this meeting to order at 9:05 a.m. And we want to welcome everyone to the Barber Advisory Board meeting. We have the advisory boards here today. And first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out this morning. It's a great turnout today. And we do have some interesting topics to talk about today on the agenda. First of all, I want to introduce our board. So let's do a roll call first. Oh, I'll do it. Everybody present, just say present when I call your name. Michelle Wasser.
Present.
Here I am on the wrong sheet. James Bowen.
Present.
Jenny Hatch.
Present.
And Ronald Weathers.
Present.
And I'm Ron Jemison, presiding officer. Okay. Looks like we have a quorum today because we have enough members present. Thank you. Item C, looks like we have a training today, training for board members, so we want to call on our TDLR experts to give us that training today.
I don't know about that expert. Good morning, Advisory Board members. Colleen Tran, Assistant General Counsel for the Advisory Board on Barbering. Thank you all for being here this morning. Today we're going to do an overview of the Open Meetings Act, the Administrative Procedures Act, and the Public Information Act. Feel free to stop me if you have questions as we're going. First, the nuts and bolts of the Open Meetings Act. So the purpose of the Open Meetings Act is to ensure open and transparent government. So the act requires that all meetings of a governmental body, being this advisory board, to be open to the public and to be preceded by public notice of the time, place, and subject matter of the meeting. The provisions of the act are mandatory, and they are to be liberally construed in favor of open government. So what are some key concepts? So the first concept is the quorum. A quorum is the majority of the members of the advisory board or committee as fixed by rule or state. And yours is a 5-member board, and so a quorum of a governmental body or the advisory board must be present in order to make any official action. And if a quorum is not present, you guys can still meet, but you can't take any official action. The next is deliberation. Deliberation means a verbal or written exchange between a quorum of the advisory board or a quorum of the advisory board and another person concerning any issue within the jurisdiction of the advisory board. Meetings. A meeting occurs anytime there's a quorum of the advisory board that engages in deliberation regarding public business or public policy over which that advisory board, I'm substituting advisory board for governmental body, has supervision or control, or any time that body takes any sort of formal action. And notice. So the act requires advance written notice of the date, time, place, and subject of each meeting. So TDLR provides this information in the form of an agenda, and that notice, our agenda, is filed with the Texas Secretary of State's office at least 7 days prior to the meeting, and it has to be posted online both on TDLR's website and at the Secretary of State's website. A board or committee may not engage in discussion about a subject that's not included on that agenda. That way everybody has notice of what the advisory board will be discussing. So what about social functions and conventions and workshops? Keeping in mind that there's a meeting occurring anytime there's a quorum of members meeting to discuss an issue, can members ever meet in an informal setting without violating the Open Meetings Act? Of course you can. Members are free to engage in conversation that are incidental to any event. However, if the gathering will be subject to open meetings if the quorum of members are present and they either engage in discussion about advisory board business or attempt to take any sort of formal action. So some key points to remember. So always be aware of your situation occurring outside of a properly noticed meeting in which there are a quorum of members present. And don't engage in substantive conversations relating to advisory board business or policy when there is a quorum present and you're outside of an officially noticed or scheduled meeting. And another issue to watch out for is the walking quorum. So what exactly is the walking quorum? A walking quorum occurs whenever there are fewer than a quorum of members that begin to engage in a conversation or discussion about official business, and then they communicate that discussion to other advisory board members. So while there are only a non-quorum number of members that begin this conversation, they've subsequently communicated that conversation to other members, and now you have a quorum of members discussing it. So if you'll notice, your work groups of only 2 members, so that's why we have to keep it pretty small, because it takes 3 members to be a quorum. That's why our work groups are only in 2s. So here's an example. On a 5-member advisory board, 2 members exchange phone calls and emails expressing thoughts about a rule change or research they've been doing. If only one of those members subsequently forwards that information on to another member, you now have a quorum discussing that issue, and you've engaged in a walking quorum because you have a small group discussion outside of a properly noticed meeting. So how do they occur? Conference calls, video conferences, hallway conversations. You'll see us hovering if we take breaks and stuff. Emails, text messages, and other new technologies. And this concept, combined with newer technologies like the Twitters and the Facebooks and Insta messaging, have raised new issues about meetings and compliance with the Open Meetings Act. So just be really cognizant of your surroundings. Some best practices to avoid walking quorums.
We can,
Oh, no.
we're back on?
That one. Oh, I'm on.
Oh, right before I recessed.
Thank you, Mike.
And then on the last point here, for best practices to avoid a walking quorum, don't ask a quorum of members, even on an individual basis, for feedback outside of a public meeting. This is kind of called like an informal poll that's against the rules. So guidelines for open session. An advisory board is limited to discussing the specific items on the agenda, which you have before you. During the public comment period, members of the public are given the opportunity to speak, and the presiding officer may limit that to a reasonable amount of time. However, a member of the public or a member of the board may raise a subject that has not been included on the agenda, but we have to limit that to a proposal for a future agenda so that everybody's on notice that we will be discussing that particular issue. Some best practices to avoid violating the act. Limit discussion to specific agenda items contained on the posting that's filed with the Secretary of State. Avoid allowing discussions regarding specific agenda items to wander off into new issues that haven't been properly noticed. Don't respond to or discuss issues that are raised during public comment, which are not already on the agenda. And specifically identify items for us as staff so that we can have them on future agendas for everybody to discuss. So what are the penalties or remedies for violations of the Open Meetings Act? So there are civil remedies. So any interested person, including the media, may petition the courts to stop an action taken in violation of an Open Meetings Act. And then the Open Meetings Act also specifically states that an action taken in violation of the act is voidable. There are criminal penalties for members who knowingly participate in a walking quorum or knowingly participate in meetings that are close to the public. They're subject to misdemeanor criminal penalties, and the penalties can range from a fine of $100 to $500 or confinement in county jail for 1 to 6 months, or both. Some best practices. Avoid communications that involve a quorum of advisory board members about official advisory board business outside of a properly noticed meeting. And during open meetings, confine your discussions to what is specifically on the agenda. Here's some additional resources for you. They're in your materials if you should need them. And on to the Administrative Procedures Act. The Administrative Procedures Act, or the APA, is to establish minimum standards for uniform practice and procedures. I know it's so exciting for state agencies, and provide public participation and transparency during the rulemaking process. I know, transparency, best thing ever. APA definition of what is a rule. A rule is a statement made by a state agency that implements, interprets, or prescribes law or policy, or describes a procedure or practice requirements of a state agency. It's a statement of general applicability, includes amendments and repeals of prior rules, and does not solely relate to the internal management or organization of a state agency. So what are the sources for rulemaking? So we'll see today we have a rule set. So the source of what our rulemaking today are legislative changes, things that came from our advisory board work group, advisory board discussions that we'll have today, could come from staff. We have a 4-year rule review that we do, and then also rule petitions. So what's a rule petition? Any interested person may submit a petition to the state agency, so to TDLR, requesting the adoption of a rule. And an interested person is anyone who's a resident of Texas, a business entity located in Texas, a governmental subdivision in Texas, or a public or private organization that is not a state agency but is located in Texas. So this is our administrative procedures rulemaking process. Today we'll have an idea for a rule. The rule will be drafted and reviewed. We are right here. Draft rules are sent to advisory board for consideration, so we're in that blue box right now. Proposed rules that you guys will consider today, and hopefully proposed to be filed with the Texas Register. That rule set will go out and it will sit for 30 days on the Texas Register for public comment. Those comments and rules come back to me for review, and we will present those again to the advisory board for consideration. And then from there, if there are additional changes, we'll just go right back through this process. But if not, we'll go up to the commission. They will review the rule filing, the comments, and the recommendations made from you as an advisory board, and then hopefully they'll move to adopt it, and then it will become effective 20 days after that. The other way in which we have a rulemaking process is through rule review. So every program at TDLR is on a 4-year rule review cycle. That begins with wherever your program falls on that cycle, a notice of intent to review that rule set, published for 30 days, we review the comments, and they go directly to the commission. So this process here is to see whether or not a rule is still necessary, should be readopted, is still needed to run that program. Anything that comes back in will go to the advisory boards, but then for consideration afterwards. Here's some extra information and resources for you. Again, it's also in your packet. And the final training will be in Public Information Act. So the Public Information Act, or the Open Records Act, is intended to allow each person information about the affairs of government and the official acts of public officials and employees. The Act makes all documents, records, and other information relating to official business open to the public, with some exceptions, and we'll go through that in a minute. Public information includes any electronic communication created, transmitted, received, or maintained on any device if it is connection with official board business. The act should be liberally construed in favor of granting requests for information. So if you receive a request Please forward it on to the Office of General Counsel as soon as possible because we have to respond promptly. Or if there's a request from us for information from you, please try and respond promptly. A prompt response is about 10 days. And we can't ask people why they want information. We can only ask clarifying information only. And these are some exceptions that are outright that we will, that won't be, board is sensitive, that will be automatically redacted. Date of births, emails, certain educational documents, HIPAA information, medical privacy information. Here's additional information here, and the email for open records if you need to forward anything. Questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kalane. Any questions? Okay. Thank you for that. Once again, we want to welcome everybody out this morning. We do have I want to go back a little bit and just address that anybody has any public comments today. There are forms over here as you came in that you can fill out and submit to Ms. Anna, and they will be heard today. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes, so I want to give the board a time to read over the minutes and then we'll approve those.
I make a motion that we accept these minutes.
Okay.
A second.
Ms. Michelle made a motion to accept the minutes. James Bowens seconded the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. The approval of the minutes will be carried over. Okay, next up, we will have the public comments portion of the meeting. And I think we have a few of them today, so let me try not to butcher these names, okay? If I do, please correct me. All right. First up, we have Mr. Joseph Qualls. All right. Can you come to the podium, please? To the desk. Make sure you state your name once you sit down, sir.
Sit down.
Yes, sir.
My name is Joseph Quall.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Address my comment.
Please.
Joseph Quall, I'm a barber, instructor, and barbershop owner. I'm against the curriculum change from 1,500 to 1,000 hours. To begin with, I see there's a significant reduction in hours from the barber laws, and I don't think PSI percentage of pass and fail would agree with that. I see that sanitation would take a loss. I don't think cleanliness is up to par for us to be able to sustain that kind of loss. I see that dressing the hair takes a 300-hour loss. Hair cutting, technical skills aren't well enough in the classroom. I think other people in education would say the same. We have such a need for continuing education. I don't see how we can be able to sustain a significant reduction in what those students are able to receive.
Okay.
There's a reduction in hours for first aid and safety. I think sanitation and safety is chief. That's the most important part of the portion of the test. 1/3 of the test is sanitation. There'll be a reduction in scientific and fundamental methods, barber implements. I think that the only person that may benefit from this will be a high turnover for more licenses being printed or high turnover for schools in the bottom line. But I love the industry so much that it's more than money, it's morals. And that's all I can say. I appreciate you all listening.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, hold on, Mr. James? James? Is it James? Joseph, I'm sorry.
Can you
Hold
tell
on,
me where
wait,
you
wait.
came from today, or where you're
Yes,
located?
ma'am. I have a barbershop in Round Rock, downtown Round Rock, Texas, but I'm from Houston, Texas.
Thank
Awesome.
you for coming in.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay. And also keep in mind, I forgot to mention, These public comments are limited to about 3 minutes, okay? All right. So next up on the request line, we have Ms. Rhonda Bryant. Come on down. All right. She's sporting no, let me stop.
My name is Rhonda Bryant, and I am from Corsicana, Texas.
All right.
And I have a barbershop salon there. I'm also an educator in Dallas at Bladecraft Barber Academy with Lily Benitez. So I do want to address the 1,500 hour to 1,000 hour change. I have been a barber for 30 years. I became a barber when I was 20 years old. And I just feel like that this is a step backwards instead of forwards. I think any time that we cut our education, it minimizes our value and the value that we have to other people. So I just believe that as an educator, to have students leave our school with confidence and the ability to go forward and serve the public in a manner that is, I would say, that protects them and serves them well. I just think we need all of those hours and probably even a few more, all right? So I really just wanted to speak out. It makes me nervous to speak to people. I'm glad I'm only looking at you
You're
guys.
doing good. You're doing great.
But I just really, really wanted to have a voice in this, that we love our industry. We're creators, we're artists, we're professionals, and we need to hold on to that. No matter what other cosmetology, what they're doing. I chose barbering over cosmetology because it required more of me, and it has always required more of me. So I really think that we could keep that standard high and hold on to it. And if we need to change it in the future, let's address that maybe, but not now. Let's keep our standard high. Let's keep putting barbers out there that know what they're doing for themselves and for our public. Thank you.
Thank you.
so much.
Anybody have any statements? Questions? All right. Thank you once again, Ms. Bryant.
That was really good.
All right. Next up, we have Ms. Lily Benitez.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Lily Benitez from Dallas, Texas.
All right, welcome.
We had a wonderful drive here. I'd like to start with a quote. Sometimes it's good to have to wait. Have a conversation with a friend or a stranger, read a book or an article, or just sit and watch the world around you. This is a quote from a client that's waiting at a barbershop from one of our graduates. They started a barbershop in a really small town, and they've totally brought life to a main street that wasn't thriving. And the image is of him waiting, sitting in a barbershop waiting. So I want to address the potential reduction of 1,500 hours. And I believe that the 1,500 hours allows us to create not only a competent barber, but a confident one. And it really is showing in the communities that they're going and affecting. Not only is it about the technical skills, but it's, again, the actual communities that they're involved in, as a quote that I just read. Also, we have business behind it. Forbes said that the barbering industry is estimated to be $26 billion by next year, which means that there isn't, 1,500 hours isn't an obstacle that people are tripping over to make it happen. We have a huge resurgence and the business is only growing. So I believe that having the full 1,500 hours allows us as educators to completely create a well-rounded barber. Landlords are super excited about having barbers renting the open establishments because you can't e-commerce a haircut or a straight razor shave. You can't e-commerce community. You can't e-commerce connection. So as much as so many things are being automated and AI'd, you can't really do that for human touch and physical fellowship. On that note, I'd like to address just mental health, and what we've been seeing on our social media makes us a little bit more aware of issues that we've been dealing just forever, but now we have more access to that. I really believe that barbers help the person not only look good, but feel better. And counselors have barbers have the ability to not prescribe, but to refer people to a psychotherapist or a doctor, or, help, not diagnose, obviously, but help refer. And I think that especially because of what we have going on with social media, it's super important that people have an excuse to come out and interact with other human beings and truly connect. The difference between, we have the reduction in cosmetologists, and we're looking at it because they are similar industries. However, one of the major differences in the two industries is that cosmetology requires continuing education in order to renew your license every 2 years. Barbering does not. So for a lot of us, when we went to barber school,
That's 3
Time.
minutes, but you can extend.
Right.
so for barbering
Few more
to
minutes. Few more seconds, go ahead, please.
for us to cut the education that they're going to get when they're not required to obtain continuing education, I believe is a disservice to the public and to our students. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I also have a petition that people signed, if I can.
You can leave it.
You can leave it there.
Take it.
Give it to you guys.
Yes, ma'am.
You have any questions? Any statements? Anybody?
Thank you.
Anybody have any statements? Any questions? Y'all good? You good? Is it Miss Haley? Carlisle? Is it Carlisle? Did you want to speak today? Did you have a comment, Miss Haley? Okay. All right. All right.
Oh,
Okay. You sure?
you can talk to me later, okay?
All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, next up we have Mr. Robert Diaz. Come on down, Mr. Diaz. State your name and tell us where you're from.
So nervous. Is it just cold in here?
It's just cold. It's just cold.
Good morning. My name is Robert Diaz, and I'm the owner and educator for Tonsore Master Academy in San Antonio, Texas. I've
Okay.
been a barber since 1980.
Wow.
Man, the industry's good. Industry's good. Huh?
If you don't know me, I love barbering.
All
I
right.
love it. I'm passionate about it. I'll start crying right now. I'm passionate about it. But what concerns me is the reduction of the hours, of 1,500 hours to 1,000 hours. And I feel like it would just be a big disservice because as an educator, as a barber school owner, I have transformed people's lives from a teacher who's never touched a pair of scissors or somebody from an insurance agency who's never touched anything. And I have to teach them how to handle a razor and teach them and sanitation and warn them about MRSA if they don't properly sanitize their razor properly. I have to teach a person how to do a lineup, how to make curly hair, how to make straight hair, how to cut their hair, how to shave. It takes practice. I've taken people who can't even talk to people, like me.
You're doing good.
I take people who can't even talk to people, who can't even drape, and I have to teach them how to drape professionally and confidently, and to make that person believe that they are a barber. So it's a matter of training and training and training that's constant, ongoing, that just cannot be taught. We would be taking a big step backwards. We'd be doing a disservice to our state and to our industry. So I believe 1,500 hours is appropriate. I believe that If things were to change in following the cosmetology program, because that is a separate program and they chose to reduce their hours, then I would suggest that there would be a way to increase their crossover hours from 300 hours to 500 hours. Because I don't feel like we need to follow their lead, because I don't think it would be a great, it would be not good for the professional. My passion for opening up a barber college was to promote the art of barbering, nothing less. That's in our My Lady's book, and it challenges us to do that. By doing that, and by stepping backwards, we are not doing that. Our goal is to teach the traditions of barbering, not just guards, not just sanitation. It's a craft. It's a passion. There's something about this that just cannot be learned in 1,000 hours. We all know it's ongoing.
I'll wrap it up. 30 seconds.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate y'all being here. Thanks.
No, thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Diaz.
Yes, sir. That was good. I just want to make a comment.
You have a comment? For Mr.
Not
Diaz?
for him
Okay.
particularly, but I just
Please.
wanted to say, those that mentioned things about the hours staying where they are, we have to also realize that the cosmetology, they've changed their hours already. So, I guess as of right now, if someone went to cosmetology school and then they did the crossover license, that would still be less hours than the barber license, which means that it could possibly water down our numbers because people may go that direction
Yes.
to cut their hours down for schooling. So we have to keep that in mind also.
Thanks. Thanks, Jerry.
And Mr.
Let's
Bowman,
stay.
on the, we've got an agenda
We're
item
gonna
coming
get
up
there.
where you'll be able to have
Yeah, we're gonna get
a
there.
full discussion of that, and we'll talk about what the timing is. There's been no change in hours yet. That's kind of coming down the road, so we'll have an opportunity to have a full discussion of that.
Like everybody's ready for that part. Like skip to the other part, huh? What's all this fluff we're talking about here? Huh? All right. It's just the order we have to do, all right? All right, well, thank you all for your public comments.
Yes, thank
We really appreciate that today.
Absolutely.
And your passion.
And your dedication.
And you're
And
traveling.
everything.
Let's talk.
You're
We all,
traveling to get here.
all right. Okay, so now we're going to move to staff reports, which is item F. And the first staff report is the licensing division. Come on down, the Texans won. Oh, I didn't say that. I have some
Good
Cowboy
morning.
fans.
My name is Yvonne Lopez.
Hi.
I am the new licensing manager for this program.
And the new,
Yes.
welcome.
Thank you. Joyce retired on August 31st, and we wish her well and hope that she has a wonderful retirement.
Yes.
Just a little bit about me. I've been with the agency since 2008. I started in enforcement, moved on to what is now RPM, and back then it was compliance in 2012, and I started this position September 1st of this year. So I look forward to working with you all.
As well.
I will bring to your attention the licensing statistics for the end of fiscal year 2019. The total individuals for 2019 was 22,886 of licensees. And then the facilities were at 9,986. And I will take any questions if you have any.
Where are we? Where are we?
If you have
Any
none.
questions for Yvonne? Thank you,
Thank you.
and nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right, Customer Service Division?
Good morning, advisory board members. My name is Tuan Nguyen. I'm one of the customer service managers for this program.
Good morning.
I have a lot of updates for y'all before we go into statistics.
All right.
So since the last time we met, we have hired 2 new managers, 2 new quality training and performance analysts. These are people that runs our reports and do the training for our division. 2 additional team leads, and we are still hiring several ESR and CSR positions. We had a lot of lateral movements a lot of promotions within the agency, outside of the agency. It's been a busy year.
Sounds like it.
Also, in June, we have moved our contact center over to this campus now. So we're actually on the second floor. Update our contact center software as well. That way we can get more detailed reports to look into more of the reasons why people are calling in. Also, we have updated our email process to email web forms. Email web forms is basically another way for customers to send us an email, but more securely. If you go to our webpage where you usually click on Contact Us, it'll say email us here. Once you click on that, it'll go straight to a web form. Customers can still send a message, identify themselves and let us know who they are, and then do the attachments on that side. Once they click submit, it's a direct email to the agency.
Okay.
That's going to help us tremendously with a lot of people sometimes misspell the email, and that's never going to happen again if they go through that route. And the other piece is it's just a very efficient way for us to identify customers and help them with their requests and inquiries.
Okay.
For our statistics since the last time we met, we have roughly very similar statistics. We're averaging about 1,120 contacts per month. A lot of our inquiries is still about new applications, exam eligibilities, reciprocity applications, and usually website navigations. Other than that, if you have any other questions, we're very happy to answer them.
I have
Go
a
ahead.
question.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So a lot of reciprocity people that's other people from other states
mhm.
moving to Texas
Yes.
wanting to become licensed barbers here. Thank you. That's all.
Any
Zach,
others?
This is Brian Francis. As you're aware, I heard just yesterday that for Austin alone, there are 100 people that move to Austin every day.
Every day.
Every day, and for Texas, it's 1,100 folks moving into Texas. So you see that velocity, and you've been on the board long enough, and I think Michelle's been around as well, but if you recall back in 2007 when the program transferred over, there were about 12,590 barbers, and you see the growth, the steady growth in that population. And it's a mix of folks from Texas and also folks moving.
Thank you, Brian.
All right. Looks like we're growing.
Yep.
Thank you for that report.
You're welcome.
All right. Okay. Next up, we have yeah. I think it's somebody. Enforcement Division.
I hope you have the Enforcement Division
I
up
got
next.
you. You're next.
Okay, good. Chairman, Advisory Board members, my name is Rebecca Burkhalter. I'm a prosecutor for enforcement, so I'm here to present enforcement's report to you today.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Did you say your name was again?
Rebecca Burkhalter.
Is it your birthday today?
It is my birthday
Oh,
today.
wow. I got that stuff going on.
I was going to save it for the end, but if you want to wish me
Happy birthday,
Thank you.
Miss Rebecca.
Thank you very much.
You know, when you turn 21, it's awesome. It's a good.
That's
Welcome to the club.
right.
Welcome
That's
to the club.
right.
Everybody,
That's
give a round
right.
of applause for Miss Rebecca. Yes.
Thank you.
We knew you were going to give the. See, I knew I had something to say, and I was
Thank
like,
you
let
very
me get it out.
much. Thank you
Go
very
ahead,
much.
go ahead.
Any day on this side of the ground is a good one.
Right, right.
It's a good one. So it's a good day.
There you go.
So let me
Now,
let me
your birthday report.
yeah. Special birthday report.
There you go.
Okay, so let me tell you about a couple of enforcement's closed cases because talking about them kind of explains enforcement's goals in the barber profession, and then I'll talk about some statistics. So the first case on your case highlights is the case of Victor Burton. We issued a default order against Victor Burton for persistent unlicensed barbering activities after his prior barber license had been revoked. The order imposed a penalty of $1,800. We also issued a cease and desist order against Mr. Burton. The next case I have highlighted for you guys is Dapper Barber and Company. An agreed order was issued against the co-owners Randall Ramirez and Peter Toe for 4 instances of allowing unlicensed barbering at their barber shop. The order imposed a penalty of $3,000, which has already been paid in full. The next case is against Caliber Barber College. An agreed order was entered against Jose Balboa of Caliber Barber College for failing to properly calculate a student's tuition refund. The order imposed a penalty of $1,750, which has been paid in full. The next case is Richard Miles Jr. A default order was entered against Richard Miles Jr. for his second incident of unlicensed barbering after his prior license had been revoked. The order imposed a penalty of $2,500. Lastly, the case against Final Cut Barbershop. An agreed order was entered against Jeffrey Allen for his third violation of employing unlicensed barbers, among other violations. Because it was the third violation, it ramps up the level of the penalty. So the order imposed a penalty of $4,250. Mr. Allen's on a payment plan and continues to make payments towards compliance with that order. So if you guys don't have any questions about the cases, I'll move on to the statistics.
Any questions about? No.
Okay. For fiscal year 2019, which starts on September 1st, 2018 and ends on August 31st, 2019, the department opened 724 cases and resolved 686, resulting in 186 final orders. We assessed nearly $250,000 in penalties, and we collected $95,785 of that. For comparison, in fiscal year 2018, we opened 768 cases and resolved 816, resulting in 277 final orders. We assessed over $400,000 in administrative penalties and collected $170,475. So I'm available to answer any other questions that you guys might have about these statistics or about the cases.
So we're increasing the number of barbers, increasing the number of barbershops, and it looks like from 18 to 19, the fines went down a little bit, correct? Am I correct? Or the number of cases, I think.
Yes, the number of cases went down.
Went down, yes.
And if your number of final orders go down, your number of penalties assessed are going to be down too.
Go down as well, right.
So,
Okay, all right. Well, we must be doing it better.
do you guys have any further
Is that it?
questions?
Anybody else?
Is that, I do, is that due to a decrease in agents,
In agents?
in inspectors? Apologize.
I don't believe so.
I can weigh in on that one.
Sure.
Brian Francis, it's not due to a decrease. What we've made a change on philosophically, and someone said it best up there, and I can't remember who the public speaker was. I believe it was Joseph. He said that safety and sanitation, that's the key. And so now what you see in our complaints, we're going after those high health risk related complaints. So some of the paper stuff we're not as worried about. We will talk to them, hey, fix that, take care of that. But what you're seeing now is our focus is on those direct to enforcement cases that deal with sanitation and the risk to that consumer in that chair. And then the unlicensed activity, we'll jump on that with both feet as well.
Thank you.
Okay, and that makes sense, because I guess if there's a violation within the safety and sanitation, more than likely it's going to be other violations.
That's correct. That's correct. You see it right there.
That
Yes,
makes
sir.
sense. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you. You guys have a wonderful day.
You as well.
Thank you.
Drinks on Rebecca.
Thanks for the happy birthday wish.
All right. Looks like regulatory program, management division. I'm sorry. Education and examination. I see you walking up and I still said it. Huh? Come on in. Come on in to the meeting.
Good morning,
Hair
Chair.
looks pretty.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, Advisory Board members. I'm Rebecca Adamus, Education and Exam. I'm the Education Liaison for TDLR, and I am honored to do that for your industry as well as other industries that we regulate. I look forward to visiting all of these amazing educators that are here, visiting your schools, seeing the programs that you run. You should be very proud of yourselves for being here and your passion. I wanted to personally acknowledge you guys for that, so thank you so much for being here. So now down to business.
Awesome.
We recently had an exam review session at the end of September, and from that session, we had a discussion regarding the issue of mannequins versus models and how that affects the current practical examination and how we could assist with the challenge that the industry, the students face trying to find a model. We've heard countless arguments to where, they're being charged. Folks are now in the business of, I will serve as your model if you pay me, things to that nature. So what we wanted to do as a committee is, because it is in the rule currently that, a model must be required, what could we do to assist the industry? And the subject matter experts, we had, discussions, and for the time being, until we can take a look at this rule, which we might be doing that later on today, was to help the industry out during effective Monday, today. Any barber that goes in has the option, and the candidate information bulletins have also been updated to let you know as well, that if they want to bring an additional mannequin head, that you have your model for the first portion of your examination. But once you get to the haircutting portion, you can dismiss your model, because let's say they don't want to have their hair cut that day, and you can use a mannequin for the haircutting portion of the examination. And then going forward, you'd use the mannequin, from either or for the haircutting, and then from then on, for the chemical services, because we all know nobody wants to walk around with a bunch of goop in their hair, a mannequin will be allowed also for that portion. We just wanted to let everyone know that at the beginning, the candidate information bulletins have been updated. You'll be able to see that on there. It's right in front in red, and it also is down in the equipment on what's needed and what's not.
So that'll be an option.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, it's
Okay.
an option.
All right.
Another thing I'd like to share, because at the time that you received your statistics, we still hadn't launched the practical examination, the updated practical examination. So I wanted to give you a total, as of the end of October, we are at a 76%.
All right.
6% pass?
Mhm. Yes.
Okay.
Next thing I'd like to bring up is, again, to acknowledge and give kudos to the industry. We had 104 attendees at the Barber Summit.
Whoa.
That was absolutely amazing to see
Let's give it
this
up.
room filled with barbers that were passionate about their industry. So we wanted just to say that, thank you for being here. We heard your comments, and you will see, as a staff, we sat down, reviewed comments, and you'll see later on during our rules presentation some of the options that came from the summit. So we did hear you. Your voices were heard, and thank you so much for being here. And that's all I have for my report. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions?
Public can't ask you questions. I'm sorry. Later.
But we can have a discussion
Yeah,
after.
absolutely.
So just for clarification purposes,
Mhm.
starting on Monday,
Today,
starting today,
November 4th.
November 4th.
those,
Option.
They can
Option
bring
is available.
for the
It's available.
haircut
Okay.
portion.
For
Mhm.
practical.
all right.
They must use a model for the first half, for the manicure and the facial,
They can
but when-
dismiss.
and the shave, but once they get down to the haircutting portion, they can excuse their model and use a mannequin head.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Got confused, but okay. All right, thanks, Rebecca. Thank you. All right. So when I was anxiously trying to get to before, regulatory program and management division, please. Miss Elizabeth, I hadn't seen you in a while, so I was like trying to hurry up and get to you. I was like, where BB at?
Good morning, Chair and Advisory Board members. My name is Elizabeth Bettis, and I will be giving the report for Regulatory Program Management. Since we last met, we've been attending various hair shows. We attended the 74th and the 75th Texas State Association and Beauty Culturist League in Beaumont, 2 TIVA conferences. We also attended the Image Expo in Houston and the Armstrong McCall World's Fair in September. During these shows, RPM staff provides the attendees with any information that they ask, such as renewals, the agency's human trafficking initiative, continuing education requirements, laws and rule questions. Marinella, myself, and Jerry Gonzalez also attended PSI barber exam reviews in January and September. And we continue to assist the other divisions in the agency with any questions and support that they may need. The last show, Facted, was canceled, so we didn't attend that.
Okay.
So, any questions you may have?
Anyone? No? We're good. Thank you, Miss Elizabeth.
You're welcome.
All right.
And it's not my birthday.
I got you. All right. Field Inspection Division.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, my name is Tanya Guthrie. I'm the Director of Field Inspections. And in our report today, we're going to start out with the most common violations found during inspections. And as you can see, it's a mix between administrative type violations, but there definitely are a number of sanitation or safety violations listed in there as well. And the first grouping here is for your establishments, and then we've also got the most common violations found during school inspections. But as you can see, there are only 5 of them. The number of violations found during schools is more minimal than those that we find in establishments. In the Field Inspections Division, also, we have personnel updates. And since we haven't met with you guys in a while, there's just so much in here. I'm going to try to hit the highlights. I want to welcome our new North Region Manager, Ron Gerke. We've also been able to move from 3 regions into 4, and so we now have a Central Region Manager, Juan Muniz, who was promoted from within the division. We also want to welcome Angela Sanders into her new position as a Field Inspections Liaison. In addition to that, we've been able to hire a number of new inspectors during this period since we've met. So feeling good about our coverage throughout the state.
That's great.
We've got our field inspection statistics, first for establishments for the year, and it's kind of showing the numbers from FY 2018 to FY 2019, and we did 5,775 inspections for establishments. And for barber schools, we did 253 inspections in FY 2019. Any questions? No?
You did great.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, item G, Executive Office.
Mr. Chairman, Brian Francis, Executive Director with TDLR. I just want to echo what our folks were saying earlier. The summit was fantastic. Y'all created some problems for us. We didn't expect to have that many folks here, and so we had to banish some of our staff from the room. Y'all go up to your desk and watch it, and we were kicking people out in the hallway, our own people, of course, to make room for the volume of folks here. Not only the attendance, but the quality of the conversations that took place. It was impeccable, and it's something that I think the barbering industry they're capable of, but you haven't shown that before. You know, a lot of times the meetings are empty and you haven't been present, but you were present, you were engaged, and it's going to drive the conversation that's going to be before us today. So I just want to commend you on that. Also, Lily had provided us with a petition. We're going to provide that to the members, so Lily, they'll have that. You'll notice that we did redact some information on there. As a state agency, we cannot give out someone's email address. So that's the only thing you'll see blacked out there is the email addresses. We wanted to make sure that we cured it properly before we gave it out. Mr. Chairman, a couple of things I want to update you on is the 86th legislative session, which ended in May. Obviously, there's a lot of things that took place for the agency. When you're at TDLR, we have 39 programs. Now we're sitting at about 1.2 million licensees. 22,000 of those are made up of barbers. There's a whole lot going on in a lot of different areas. One of the areas I want to talk about that will impact this program down the road is that we were successful in getting additional funding for a single licensing system, the software. So you're like, well, what does that mean for us? When you have 39 different programs and they are running on 9 different systems, there is a lot of opportunity for them not to speak well and play well together. And so we're going to have the chance to build a licensing system that all of our programs that, our occupational and professional licensing can reside on. That's a big deal. It's going to allow us to be even more efficient in how we serve you. So we're looking at that process and getting that going forward. Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. It's going down. The little child knows how important it is. The other thing that I wanted to point out is House Bill 2698. That's the bill that would give us the ability to allow schools to do the practical examination. We're going to put the brakes on that. I mean, there's a lot more pressing issues that are going to be before us. The language and the operative word is may. The agency may do that. We are not going to look at that for a while. It's just not that critical, but it gives us the infrastructure to do that if the time is right. One of our guys, my chief transformation officer, Randy Nesbitt, always talks about our idea is ripe now. There's a ripeness for an idea, and it's like I was not ripe to be a husband when I was in college. I was still not the man that I am today. It wasn't ripe for me to marry anyone at that time. But as time came on and I became more mature, the opportunity for me to be a husband was ripe. The same thing with opportunities in our rules. Sometimes it's just not ready now, but maybe that will be in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Who knows? But at least we have the holding place for that. House Bill 2847, which has brought most of you out. That bill does impact barbers in a couple of ways directly. Number one, the rules that we'll have on here, which we call Uber for Hair, which allows for a structured, legal way for folks to perform services at home. Currently now, you have the ability to perform services away from a licensed facility if the person is infirmed. If they're in a nursing home, you can go to that location. Obviously, you still have to make that appointment through a licensed facility. This is going to allow for what we know folks are kind of doing already. It's going to allow us to have a structured approach that if you have this digital platform that says, I'm going to connect Mr. Weathers with this gentleman right here who has a fantastic mustache, and he's going to come over and do the mustache, that we now have a way to track that record and the limited services that can be done under that process. So we're basically catching the statute up to the times. And the way I like to look at it is we are not going to hold this industry back because the agency can't be technologically forward in the way we think. The other thing is 2847 allowed us to extend the inspection time period. We did the data, and when you look at the violations in a barber shop, it's like 85 to 90% of them have no violations. So we were going back and going back and going back. But when you start looking at those shops that have manicure service and pedicure services, they have a higher level and opportunity for violations. It's going to allow us to take a slower look at those that are doing a great job and have the opportunity to go more frequently to those that may have a higher risk to consumers, as we talked about before. 2847 also changed the dynamic for moving for cosmetologists to 1,500 to 1,000 hours. Obviously, we're in the room for that conversation. What does it mean for your industry? As we get into the next agenda item, you're going to have a chance to wrestle with that. As we said in the summit, the barbering industry has options. You can stay at 1,500. You can go to 1,400. You can go to 1,300. You can go to 1,200. You can go to 1,100. And you can go to 1,000. You do not have to go to 1,000. You do not have to move. And that's what this conversation is about. So I look forward to hearing the deliberation from the advisory board as it goes through this process. I'm looking at my notes. Okay, the last thing, sunset. So just a quick little primer on what sunset is. It basically means that every 12 years, the state has a mechanism that says, let's see if this program, let's see if this agency has a need to continue. Is there a need to continue to have that program out there? In the sunset process, they come in, they do a deep dive, they look at your statute, they look at your operations. We had the opportunity to hang out with the sunset staff for 14 meetings in the month of October, and we learned a lot about our organization. Hopefully they learned a lot about us as well. The sunset process is a public process. It is for you, it is for consumers to weigh in. So if you go to our webpage on the front page, it says, hey, TDLR is under sunset. Click on this link if you want to provide comments. Someone said earlier, and I think it was my gentleman right here, he said, oh, hey, I think this is an opportunity to look at doing 500 hours for the crossover instead of 300. We can't do that by rule. but you could offer that as a comment to the sunset and say statutorily, I think it's more appropriate to have that as 500 hours versus 300 hours. So there's opportunities for you to weigh in on statutory things that you think need to improve and can improve your agents, your industry, and that's what the sunset process is there for. I'll turn over to my deputy and see if he has any comments or just to say hi with his beautiful face.
Just want to welcome here everyone here, and again, the participation that we're having out in the crowd. It's great to see, especially I understand it's an issue that is kind of touches close to who you are as a person. But I want you to know that your voices were heard in the last meeting. I was one of those individuals that got thrown out, so I was kind of sitting in a room in the back. I couldn't. There was a chair open. They said get up and move, so I moved. So I was out there, but I do want to welcome everybody here. And glad to see everyone there, and you know, board members, you're in a tough position today. But I want you to know that I know that you're here because you want to hear the people. I know that you're here because you want to make sure that's what's in the best interest of the industry. And I know that you're here because you want to make not only Texas great, but you want to make it shine in the nation. So I appreciate your work. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it may be advisable to take maybe just a 5 or 10 minute break and then let the work begin.
I think so. Well, thanks for your comments today, and I'm sure we're going to get a few more. But let's, looks like it's 10:06, so let's take a 5-minute break and meet back in here so we can finish up the meeting. Thank you. 10:06, let's come back at 10:11. All right. We want to welcome everybody back. I know we went a little bit over, but we're going to call the meeting back at 10, is that 19? 10:19. All right, so 10:19, we're officially back in business. Let's move on. Let's keep it moving right along. We're going to go to item H on the agenda, please.
Good morning, Advisory Board members. Colleen Tran, Assistant General Counsel for the Advisory Board on Barbering. So we're going to go through the rule set now at this time. The rule set should be in your materials, and I will go through, explain the changes section by section. If you have questions or comments or would like to adjust anything, let me know, and we'll make those changes as we go forward. First section is 82.10. That's the definitions. You'll see we've added definitions 16, 17 for digitally prearranged remote services. This is because of House Bill 2847, Article 14, specifically Section 14.007. You also add the definition for remote service businesses because of that bill. You'll notice some other changes from the term of the use reciprocity to the term use of a substantial equivalence. The reason for that is that in Chapter 1601, the term is substantial equivalence and not the term reciprocity. So we're making sure that we're matching to statute and what that term actually means. And then you'll also notice that after the word curriculum, in some places we've added the word standard for clarity, that this is just the curriculum standard. It's not a set curriculum. Questions or concerns? Mr. Bowen, do you want me to get you a copy? Do we have an extra?
What's it?
Okay, you share.
Yeah, we're
Oh.
fine, we're fine.
Rebecca and I will
Yeah,
share.
he's the tablet man.
Huh?
He's a tablet man.
Next change is 82.20, license requirements for individuals. Again, you'll see the addition of the term curriculum standards, the term standards to the word curriculum. And then the addition of new item L, which is because of House Bill 2847, Article 14, adding in remote service businesses. Next section is 82.21, license requirement and examinations. I've removed the word curriculum here because it's number of hours required, not specifically curriculum hours. That's just for clarity and reading purposes. You'll also see here in subsection F is a change from requiring a model to now giving the option of having a model and examination. So the examinee may provide a model of 16 years of age or older, or whom to demonstrate the practical work. The department may require parental approval for models under 18 years of age.
Mr. Chairman, before we go any further, Brian Francis, I just wanted to acknowledge the attendance of one of our governor-appointed commissioners, Helen Callier. She, I think she's making a statement for the barbering industry. To have her attend this meeting as one of the liaisons for our commission is a big deal. And so I just wanted to tell you, appreciate you being here, and I know that the industry appreciates you being here as well, having a firsthand listen and look on this very important issue. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely, thanks.
Yes. We're privileged this morning. All right.
I have a quick question. Just, so we're going to talk about recommending that these go to the Texas, what is it, the registry?
Texas Register, yes ma'am.
Should we do it a section at a time? Should we, I mean, what's the plan here?
I think if you're going through it, if there is a section that gives you pause, then you can pull that one out.
Okay.
But as things are going through with the definitions, I don't think you had issues with that. Moving substantially equivalent to reciprocity, I don't think you had challenges with that. So to not belabor and have you approve each section.
Okay.
I think going through it as it's going, but there'll be a moment where I think you're going to want to slow it down, and you'll be able to say, on this section here, members, if we don't agree, I have a motion for X, and I think that would be appropriate in that moment.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for clarity. All right.
Okay.
Everybody clear?
82.21, Mr. Weathers? Did you have a question?
No.
Okay. Any changes or questions on 82.21? Next is dot 22. So you'll see this is a similar addition because of House Bill 2847 for digitally prearranged remote services, Article 14, specifically Section 14.007 of that bill. You'll see in dot 28, it's the change for substantial equivalence to reciprocity to match current statutory requirements and language use.
Colleen,
So we
this
just
is Brian
change
Francis.
the word.
Could you please just provide just a quick
Expound on it.
primer on the difference between reciprocity and substantial equivalence? Because we know what it means in our world, but I want the folks out here to understand what that means in their world.
Okay. So substantially, I had it written down where it was in this section. Hold on real quick. So the term reciprocity it requires that two states at that point have an agreement that they will reciprocate licenses. So we would have to have an agreement with, say, Oklahoma, that your license is that you issue for barbers on that state is what we will accept over here, and our license that we issue for barbers is something that you'll accept over there. So that's a contractual relationship that we don't enter into. So by statute, we are allowed to look at licenses across the state for substantially equivalent requirements to the licensing requirements that we have here. So currently, right now, if a state has 1,500 hours, what are the breakdown of the 1,500 hours? What are they required to complete to do their application? Does it match what a licensed somebody who is trying to be licensed as a barber in our state would be required to go through? If they are substantially equivalent, then we would be allowed to go through the process of them applying and potentially obtaining a license here in the state. It's a little bit faster than us, the state, having to execute a contract with somebody else to have a license. And then we can look at all of the states as well.
Colleen, thank you.
You're welcome. 82.52, periodic inspections. That change is made because of House Bill 2847, Article 14, specifically Section 14.006. And this here keeps it increases the inspection period for certain shops from 2 to 4 years. Shops that still do the manicuring, the pedicuring services will still stay on a current 2-year process, and schools will be twice a year. Right. Dot 70 is the exception made because of House Bill 2847 at addition of the digitally prearranged remote services, making sure that it's clear that you can perform these digitally prearranged remote services at other locations than as prescribed in this section. In dot 7.
That's about the, dot 70, Ron Johnson, Chairman. Dot 70 is about the,
Remote services. Where they can
kind of like the Uber thing or something?
Yes, it's the
Okay.
Uber thing. So currently in that section, that's where Brian was describing that it says that you can only do it quinceañeras, weddings at certain locations. This is letting them know that if you are a remote service business and you're performing digitally prearranged remote services, you can do them outside of a licensed facility.
But it has to go through a,
Yes.
gotcha, all right.
Dot 72, responsibilities of barber schools. You'll see a lot of work here from the advisory board work groups for cleaning up redundancies and regulatory burdens. And then also you'll see that curriculum standard change. So things like clocks, bulletin boards, chalkboards, or dry erase boards will not be outright requirements for schools now. In the age of iPads and new things, those seemed a little outdated, or the requirement that the instructor's desk be in the classroom, those type of requirements.
Right. Awesome.
You can have a chalkboard if you want one.
Right.
It's just not required.
It's not required that you have one now, because you can have iPads too.
Retro.
And if it's
Retro's
raining
good.
outside, you can do eraser races so the kids don't have to go out for it. Long time ago.
Man, it's been in here for a while. We got it done. That's good. That's good.
Dot 74 was just me doing some cleaning up work for clarity. It's that not attend a class for 30 consecutive days and not a barber curriculum. That's the only time that term kind of showed up, so I wanted to make sure that it was clear. So it's for clarity purposes.
Okay.
Dot 77 is your largest new rule, and this implements House Bill 2847, Article 14, Section 14.007 for digitally prearranged remote services. A lot of it is taken from statute, and so it will look familiar if you've looked through 2847. .80, the change here is again for the use of the term from substantial equivalence, removing the term use of reciprocity. And then you'll see in .20, all I've done is added the word, ooh.
120?
.120, yes, sir. I've added the word standards to the back of where everything is curriculum. And then if you did look at public secondary Class A barber curriculum standards for high school students, I've removed the extra reference to for high school students. I'm not quite sure why it was in that chart twice, but taking that out.
All right.
So those are all your statutory and advisory board work group and cleanup rule changes. The next discussion that we'll have is the curriculum standard hours. In the handout that you have the current 1,500 and the current 1,000.
Yes.
And then from the staff here at TDLR went through comments from the summit and the emails that came in, and there were varying suggestions from different number of hours. And so we went ahead and so we got suggestions for 1,200 and then the 1,300 and so we decided to reach out to advisory board work group members and proportion those 1,000 to 1,400 to give an option for wherever, if you should choose to move, that is what we could look, and then we could look down at what those standards are and adjust those numbers if you would like to at all. One comment about crossover, just to be clear, crossovers are done in statute. So that's something that we can't change here. It's 300 hours by statute, and I believe it's 1601-253 C that lays out your 300-hour crossover. So just keeping that in mind, that's a statutory requirement.
Can you briefly explain that?
Yeah.
I mean,
so,
the difference between statutory.
So the statute is the law. We
Just
don't
for the-
have purview to change that. The legislature has to change that. Our rules are what help implement those statutory changes. So specifically here for an eligibility for a Class A barber certificate, which is 1601-253, subsection C says there that we, as the commission, can adopt rules for the issuance of a Class A barber license to a person who currently holds a operator license issued under 1602. The department shall issue that certificate to a person who holds that operator license under 1602 and completes at least 300 hours of instruction in barbering. So those 300 hours are set by statute.
Statutory, all right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Brian Francis.
Please.
As you go into this section of your discussion, I think it's a two-part conversation.
Okay.
I think the first part needs to deal with, what do you want to do with the hours? 1,500, 1,400, 1,300, 1,200, 1,100, 1,000. People want to know. That's what they're here for.
Right.
Once you decide what you want to do with that, then it's the allocation of those hours. But the first part, I think, of your deliberation that you need to have is, what do you want to do with the hours?
Exactly.
The other part that I want to emphasize in this process is that today, if there is a vote to lower the hours at any level, let's say they move it down to 900. We know that's not an option. I'm just messing with you, Joseph. Joseph's eyes bugged, too. His eyes is absolutely bugged.
You're like, wait a minute,
Let's say
2,000.
that there is an option to lower the hours down and there's a vote. That is simply publishing it so people can comment officially in the Texas Register. There's no change today. Comments come in, they come back to this body. You're going to be back here hanging out with us again, probably in about 6 weeks or so, depending on the date that the team will give us. And then it's talking about those conversations. And let's say they vote to keep it at what they voted at before. It's still not done until it goes to our commission. Remember earlier when Colleen did the presentation of how rules move
Right.
through. So
Right.
your opportunity to comment was at the summit. It's today. It's going to be in the comment period. If there's any proposed change, it'll be back in this venue again, and then it'll be back before our commission. So I just want y'all to kind of figure out what the process looks like. Mr. Bowens was saying that the cosmetologist change has happened. It has not. the rules are going to be proposed to do it. They are going down to 1,000. That's a done deal. It's just how they allocate it.
Allocate the hours.
But they're still not going to be effective until they go through their meeting on the 21st, their public comment, come back to their advisory board meeting, and then go before our commission. And then there's an effective date somewhere late January, mid-February that says now these rules are effective. That's the time period that we're probably looking at for an effectiveness on this. So just want to give you context. Have fun in choosing your hours, but let's hear what you got. We're just going to sit back and watch the show.
Just to
We're not there.
clarify.
We got a few more things to hear from
No,
this.
just to
Before we get into all
clarify,
that.
cosmetology meets on November 18th.
18th?
Yes.
Yes.
In the afternoon.
Yes.
Please don't
They
come on the
got-
21st.
At 2 o'clock.
So, before you, Brian is right. So the conversation is whether or not you want to move and where that is. And so you have 15, all of them, and wherever you can go up to if you'd like. And then once that debate or that discussion is done, we can discuss, if you do choose to move, what those numbers look like.
And we've already heard the public comments, so this will be between the advisory board, correct?
Yes, just the advisory board members' discussion.
And once again, I want to thank everybody for their public comments and also for the attendance at the summit and for your words and your insight and passion on this industry that we have. The barber industry is a great industry. So we've heard some things today, board. We've heard Ms. Colleen address about the hours and some of the things that can and cannot be done. We have some outlines in front of us of what it would look like if we went from 1,500 and made a change and not necessarily mirrored the cosmetology department or industry, should I say, but just to have some options there to make some adjustments with the barber industry as well as it is today. I know these things have been in existence for some time, and I know that every time there is change, that a lot of people get uncomfortable with change. It's almost like, I'll put an example for me in my life of watching my kids know how to operate my phone better than me. And so I'm like, wow, but it's the change of the times. They're actually educated on some things a little differently than what I was back in the day with my blocks and stuff like that. So, we're just kind of, I think that the whole world is moving and moving in a rapid pace. And even hearing things as such as, even seeing the taxi cab business, kind of change. I don't know if it was for the better or what, but it changed where people have access to things like that, for a ride. So I want to kind of get into this a little bit and hear some of your comments, either if you want it to stay the same at 1,500 and let's not move at all, or if you have some insight on if we do make a change and what that change will be. So anybody want to chime in right now?
May I?
Please state your name and let's go.
Thank you. I'm Jenny Hatch, and I've been working on the education and curriculum work group for, 8 years, I think. Unfortunately, you're unable to see all the iterations that came to these models that we're putting in front of you today. But it is something that we've been trying to, if you look at the rules right now, each license type, the curriculums, they don't go together very well. They look like they were written by somebody completely different, and they probably were. And so we've been trying to get them to be clearer, to get them to make it easier for schools to develop their own curriculum. Speaking of which, we're calling this now standards. This is not a curriculum. This is not the curriculum that you give to your students when they come to school. You are free to develop your own curriculum, just making sure that it includes these standards. And let me back up for a second, because I don't know a lot of you. But you guys are reminding me of what brought me here. I've been a barber for 27 years, a proud barber. I was so happy that I could go to barber school and did not have to become a cosmetologist. When somebody said, why don't you go to barber school? I was like, it didn't even occur to me. And it's been my home and my love and my passion. And so I first came here for a strategic planning meeting, and my concern, we're talking about a barrier to get into the industry. 1,500 hours is proving not to be much of a barrier. Not having a school is a big barrier. In my area of Texas, there's not a school within 200 miles of my town. No schools whatsoever. So I've been hoping for an option for people to learn barbering through an apprenticeship program under a master barber in a shop the way it was before there were schools, just an option. And it's something that I've been passionate about and haven't really gotten any results with. It's a little frustrating. Things move very slowly. So it does seem like this is a real quick change, but or not that it's changing, discussion on something that it's very abrupt. But honestly, we've had a 1,000-hour barber program since before I became involved with the board, and since I've been on the board. Anyway, I drove in from Alpine for this meeting, for this first strategic meeting that I went to. I'm so sorry that I didn't make it for the summit. But because I was coming here, I wasn't able. I work behind the chair full time in my shop with 3 chairs. And so I wasn't able to come for that. But I am grateful for all of you that are here today, and really glad to hear what you have to say, and your passion moves me. So one thing that I have learned that I didn't realize before I came to that first meeting was that it's the state's obligation not to regulate quality, but basically health and safety. So that's what they're here to do. It is up to the schools and the barbers and the people in the industry to maintain the quality and the integrity of our industry. And you will be able to do that. You will have the freedom to do that. We want to make sure that you can do everything that you can to maintain that integrity. TDLR, not their job. So you can teach as much as you want, and even within 1,000 hours, within 1,500 hours, I agree. I think 1,500 hours, if we have to pick a number, which I think is kind of dumb, like some people take longer and some people don't take as much time. If we have to pick a number, I think 1,500 hours is great. But it's competitive with other states. And, but some people are ready at 1,000. Some people are not ready at 2,000 hours. We already have a 1,000 hours program. Mr. Quah suggested a need for continuing education. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That is something we could talk about that hasn't been discussed with barbering. Maybe, just something to think about if we did consider going to 1,000 hours minimum requirement too. You can still go to school after 1,000 hours. There's nothing in TDLR saying that you can't continue going to school or get some advanced training. We offer advanced training at my shop. As soon as you get hired, you have to go through a program of advanced training before you can go on the floor. So that's a possibility. Thank you for that idea. Ms. Bryant, talking about minimizing the value. Again, I think having some advanced classes could really help to add value, to say, you've completed our minimum requirements of 1,000 hours, but we recommend that you do this, just an option, and we'll give you the certificate. There are ways to work within this. I just want to put all these things that came to mind when you guys were speaking, these ideas out. Miss Lily, again, great presentation, very well researched, and as you said, the data is important. Any kind of measurements that we can get to help us with this, any kind of data that we can get. We're looking at pass rates, we're looking, we're trying to see how these requirements can help the industry and help schools. So we appreciate all of that input. I don't know really what else to say about this, but I want to just say that I am available for questions from anybody. I wish that I brought the whole box of everything, of the many outlines that we have done of these curriculum requirements or yeah. So there's so much has happened that I can't even distill it for you. So please, if I'm missing something, if you want some more clarification about anything, please, members of the board, feel free to ask me, and maybe I'll be more clear. Thank you.
So,
Good, Jenny. That was good.
so what were you saying, that you wanted to stay there, or what? What do you? We're gonna discuss the board. We're gonna discuss if we want to make any changes. You know, based off the information we've gathered in the last couple of meetings and the last summit, and you know, just by seeing that some things have changed in some of the other industries, we need to figure out if we're gonna stay where we are at 1,500. Now, I will say that understanding all the educators in the state of Texas would probably agree that most people need as much training as possible to be successful and to be thorough in their industry. I think we all would agree on that as educators. I think that as far as understanding that barbers were, if we're going to say leaders, we were the first, right? And then Cosmo came about, but now they're jumping the gun to set a tone. We don't want our industry to go away. We love our industry. So when we saw House Bill, what was it?
2847.
2847.
Yes, I don't think that was the one I was talking about.
2698.
The one that the one that was talking about doing away with deregulating. What was
That
that?
was Representative Shaheen's bill.
Yes, number was okay. When we saw that 1706 or something, 1705, I saw the industry get awoke very quickly on that one. I remember seeing all kinds of statements and comments and petitions and rallies and things of that nature, which was great to see the passion in the industry come about. And so when we're making a change, when change is upon us, then I think people get a little nervous about it, and understanding that we don't want to have to be equal to another side of the fence, or another industry, should I say, which is cosmetology. So cosmetology schools, they have a lot of big ones here in Texas, and so their curriculum is changing. Their standards are changing, where they're actually going to be 1,000 hours for a cosmetology operator. As you know, by looking at the curriculums of a barber Class A, a lot of the things that operators do or have in their curriculum is the same as what we have in our Class A barber. And I know that when I'm educating prospect students to come to school, they don't know that information. I think the picture has been painted that Cosmos do this and barbers cut hair. And a lot of people don't realize how much detail is in the curriculum that we currently have. There's a difference, yes, because we have the razor and we could do some things with that, and then the crossover came about. But as far as other things in the curriculum, they're very similar, very similar. And so, as we're thinking about today, board, as we're thinking about what we're going to do today, which is an awesome place to be, that we can even discuss it, which is pretty good. Understand that cosmetology schools and the way they market now, and the way marketing has changed so much in the world, that I'm sure the industry is going to do something like, if we stay at 1,500, for example, and a cosmetology school wants to attract more clients, then they can market that way and kind of expose some of the curriculum out there, that if you want to, just by a picture, I can show that almost like a deception that I'm a barber, that you could be a barber with this license. So the student, as we know nowadays, most of the students that I see don't want to be there 500 hours. That's just what I experienced. And I try to take this across the nation and not just in my own little world. I try to look at everything. When I travel, I always go to schools and I always visit barbershops and beauty shops as well. And just kind of listen and hear from other directors and other school owners and other barbers and other cosmetologists of what are you seeing, what are you hearing? Is YouTube taking over the world where people think they can learn the art from a video and not even have to go to school? Well, that's happening a lot. But we have to be careful that if we keep staying the same, then are we evolving with the times? So I don't want anybody to think I have a dog in this fight, but I guess I do. I do have a barber school. I do have a cosmetology school, and have for a while. And I remember my father telling me that back in the 80s, when he was the cosmetology commissioner, when it was TCC, that he had proposed for it to reduce to 1,200 hours. I remember this. And I was probably 13 at the time. I didn't really understand it at that time, but I remember watching this. And he almost, it felt like we were getting hate mail to the house. And I didn't know what was going on. You know, he had to tell me, hey, man, it's just something I did. I made a suggestion. And he made the suggestion based off of looking at the numbers of the consistent in the community as far as people getting jobs and people being able to work and support their families. And a lot of the school owners and a lot of people that were fighting back and had resistance to it, it was about the financial aid structure of it. It had nothing to do with education. Nothing. It was basically people saying, well, how are we going to get money if we're not at 1,500? Or how are we going to, build FAFSA and things of that nature? So it wasn't about, I didn't hear a lot of concern about the actual student per se or the individual. It was a bigger picture. And so I really applaud him for making that, stance at that time, even though it did not pass. It got shot down. And here we are, 30 years later, something like that? That was in the 80s, where cosmetology went down to 1,000. Isn't that amazing? And he said it back then, but they were fighting. So there's always going to be agree and disagree. But are we going to cheat the industry if us as educators are able to teach whatever we want pretty much in the school following the standards that we have in place? And it's up to us as educators to make sure we do that. And the students have to be in school to receive that. So we have to kind of be innovative and actually do the job. So I think it holds a lot of people accountable to actually work, from what I see. Because if I have 8 hours in a day and I need to get through a subject, but the students are not in tune with that subject and don't want to be there, then I have to figure out a way to help them stay in that classroom for that amount of time, or can I convey that message and that training in an hour? The attention span of the student is really going away. It's really short now. So I know that we're getting very innovative on these things, but I see my students in this phone a lot. And everybody's looking at the pages and Instagram and stuff like that for information, or not even trying to listen to the person that's in front of them, trying to give them this great education or great information so they can be successful. Not everybody's going to dive into that. And I know that every school is different, and that's the beauty of the America, is that you can, your ideas, you can brand yourself a lot differently than anybody else. And that's what makes you so unique. So they have all types of schools out here, all following the same standards, right? So if we were to adjust the hours will that really damper the information that we're giving to our students or our individuals? I feel that I want to challenge everyone that we can step our game up and become the leaders between two if we need to, just by how the quality of education we give out, and also showing the numbers and the data, by showing that our students are passing the test first time. So I don't really want the industry to be left behind the totem pole. I really don't. And I just see that there's a lot of small schools out here that were in business before, and that are still in business, that has been awarded the opportunity to educate our youth on becoming a barber or a cosmetologist. Do they have the marketing dollars to compete? Do they have the marketing dollars to compete with somebody that has 15 schools across the nation or whatever the case may be that can market on a commercial to that student to come and finish school in 6.5 months compared to 9 months? And kind of look at the average of what students are finishing the 9 months, or the 1,500 hours, should I say. As far as my personal opinion, and if anybody that was at the summit, you might have heard me say this, I said that when legislation was meeting about the hours, or about deregulation actually, I made sure that I dove into some books in my computer and started researching how the process worked, because I didn't understand it at first. And so I was asking a lot of questions, and so I came down to Austin every time I could to actually try to have my voice be heard of some people that were sitting up in front of me at the Capitol that I felt didn't understand anything about our industry, but were making the decisions for our industry. So they made a decision to change 1,500 hours in cosmetology to 1,000. Why? And I didn't really understand their part, so I was trying to understand how that worked. So I really got a crash course on lessons of how laws are made in the state. And I reached out to a lot of barber school owners and things of that nature in my city in Houston. And some of them returned my calls, some didn't. There's so much competition going on. I'm like, whoa, I'm just trying to help. Because basically I'm trying to bring awareness to you that some things are going to change, and if we're not a part of that change, we might not be in existence anymore. So, yes, educators, I understand, and barbershop owners and school owners, I understand that some students that come out are not equipped with enough tools to be successful. I get it. But I don't think everybody will. Period. I don't think everybody's going to get it. I think this industry separates the men from the boys, the women from the girls, and only the strong survive anyway. If I want this, I'm going to get it. Whether it's 500, whether it's 2,000, I'm going to get it if I want to become a barber. So schools, we have to step our game up, and educators have to step our game up, making sure we give the information if it's going to be that, but making sure that students don't have the option to just go to a cosmetology school and get a 1,000-hour course and be licensed. And think about if they want to come back and take the crossover. They don't have to. Yes, if they want to do the razor, yes, I get it. But they don't have to. They can cut hair without a razor. And a lot of people are right now. So are we going to be competitive? And is our industry going to stay afloat? Or are we going to go away? And today is one of those days that we have to make a major decision that I think will affect the industry going forward for a long time. And whichever way the decision goes, believe me, I'm going to do my part as much as I can to still make sure we educate the youth in a good way. I would like to, if anybody on the board has any more things to say about this matter, I greatly appreciate it, because today is the day. If you want to talk about, today is the day we're going to talk about what we've heard from the public, from the people that came and presented today and at the summit, and also we can make a decision today of if we're going to actually give the public some more opportunity to comment on the changes that can be made. Are we going to let cosmetology keep leading the charge, or are we going to step up and start leading the charge? Because we could set the tone as well. So,
Sorry, did anyone have any questions about the models for me?
I did not in particular.
as far as how the hours were allocated into the models?
So,
I've been looking at it for a week.
So, if you don't mind, I just want to clarify a little
Please.
bit. I feel like I rambled a little bit before. So, does the 1,500-hour requirement protect the craft of barbering? My suggestion is that it does not, that number has nothing to do with protecting the craft of barbering. Even though I've said before, I thought it was a perfectly acceptable number. That's not what makes us barbers, the number of hours that we spend in school. Cosmetologists are already working in barbershops. There's already a shortage of barbers. And I think that if cosmetology goes down to 1,000 hours and barbering stays at 1,500, there will be more cosmetologists working in barbershops and not fewer. I think that as far as the standards, we have fit the standards successfully into a 1,000-hour curriculum. All of the standards necessary required by the state, all of the standards, they fit into a 1,000-hour requirement. It can be done. The 1,000 hours is enough time for people to meet the minimum requirements to be a barber. And we talk about this a lot. We're not expecting you to be a master barber right out of school. You're going to need some more practice. You're going to need some more education. You're going to need to work with people who are better than you and continue to refine and hone your skill. When you get out of school, you're expected to meet minimum requirements. When you pass that exam, the practical and the written exam, you're expected to be minimally competent. So as far as those requirements go, 1,000 hours, I believe, is enough to get those minimum requirements in. Doesn't mean that you can't continue to learn and continue to train people.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please.
Go ahead.
Ron Weathers, first of all. And I guess my question is to you, Jen. I'm the newest board member up there, but definitely not new to the industry.
He's seasoned.
24 years this month. I've been licensed. It doesn't include the bathroom at the high school or in my dorm room at North Texas.
Gotcha.
But 24 years licensed.
Awesome.
45, I just look young and sexy like birthday girl. I'm 45 years old. I love this industry, right? So my question, more than anything, is I came with was why are we even in this discussion? But I don't want to be antiquated in my thought to where I'm blinded by growth. But 1,500 hours, I'm like, why change it? You know, why are we changing it?
Great question.
So I've listened to the wonderful comments from my laborers in this wonderful industry, because I promise you, I come from among you, not from above you. And I understand the passion and how we feel about our industry. But I'm listening, and I'm open-minded. And so I'm thinking to myself, and I just want some clarity, are we changing because of the lead taken by cosmetology and how it'll affect these 1,000 hours is going to affect us and the market? And you made an awesome analogy of the marketing on a bigger company on the scale of a smaller mom and pop school. Are we doing it because of that? Is it not to be left behind?
That's one of the reasons we're visiting, yes, because of the simple fact that they made the change. When they went to legislation, it changed to 1,000 from 1,500. So what happened is we looked at our awesome executive team of TDLR was able to find things in our rules that we had the liberty to make a change if need be. It wasn't in statute. So with it not being in statute, let's take a look at it. You know, let's take a look at the fact that, yes, cosmetology made a change to 1,000. They're so close to our industry, very close. They mirror a little bit as far as, in some states it's combined. Some states it's combined. And as you know, as the industry grows and grows, and people become more attractive to the industry of barbering, it's becoming vaguely sexy right now. I mean, it's so many people
That's
involved.
very sexy.
I mean, it's amazing how it took so long. I mean, it just like the young lady said, Ms. Lila said earlier. I think she said it was a resurgence or something. That was an awesome statement. It did. It came back. And it was like, wow. And now all these, I see a lot of franchises coming into town. I mean, just going in on grooming, which has been the foundation for so long. But so if a person is working in a grooming facility, should I say, and they don't hold the license of a Class A barber, but they have an operator's license, and they got there for 1,500 hours. I mean, for 1,000 hours. So is the marketing strategy going to change where people are not even going to want to be a barber? Or have that title, should I say?
So in its simplicity,
Mm-hmm.
a fact of the matter, some people will just go to cosmetology and not do barbering.
Correct.
For those 2 months, because it's microwave generation that we're in.
Correct.
So they'll save them 2.5, 3 months.
Money as well.
And that
Time and
education,
money.
most people don't. Let's be honest with ourselves. Once we're licensed and able to cut hair or perform styles or do whatever, most people don't go and get those continuing education classes that Jenny was suggesting. Most people don't.
Right.
Most folks just go start cutting hair.
Yeah.
If we can be honest, start doing hair, start working. Now those who are more concerned and more educated and really, really love this craft, we go and we start educating ourselves. You start going to the classes and whatnot.
Yes.
But most folk don't. So and we got to be honest. And going down to 1,000 hours from the simplicity, if we decide to, it's got to be some continuing education.
I'm with that.
It's, if that's something that we decide that does happen. But I'm that's it.
No, I hear you.
Everyone.
No, we want your
That's
opinion.
my concern, and then we don't want to get left behind. Cosmetology go 1,000, we're 1,500. More people start swinging this direction, and that's going to cause an awkward and uneven and
It
unfair
could.
shift.
It could. We don't know for sure, but it could. And so we just want to be prepared. We just want to be prepared if, and like I said, everybody's opinion is out there. I mean, we're listening. And so we're listening to the summit, and listening to today, and just listening, it's just, actually, I'm just so grateful that we even have the opportunity to talk about it, because it could be where, it would have been like cosmetology, and they said, here, this is what it is. But at least now we have the option or the chance to actually discuss it by having a summit the other day, and also having these meetings and being able to discuss the ability to make some adjustments if need be. And those were some of my concerns. I know for sure was, I didn't want barbers to get left behind on that. So, Ms. Michelle.
Michelle Wasser. I just wanted to say, many moons ago, when I was in school working on my instructor license, I had the honor and privilege of working with Mr. Ronnie Brown, who used to be on the board, and with Jenny Hatch as well. She was on the board at that time. And watching them at that time discuss curriculum and the standards for this industry and wanting to maintain those and keep them high, I saw a great passion in them, which also was instilled in myself, which led me to wanting to be on the board to make sure the standards in this industry are kept high, and that barbering is the craft of barbering and the history of barbering can move forward. So with that being said, I look at this new standards of curriculum in front of me, and the only thing I see that has changed are the hours just moved around. That doesn't mean our craft has changed. That doesn't mean the pride that we have in this industry has changed. And I think that's instilled in our educators when they teach our students and the history of barbering, and they are the mentors for the future of what this industry holds. So the 1,500 hours that we have, I as an educator thought it was great for me, because when I got out into the field, I was very, very, very new and didn't know a whole lot. So until I got out in the field, that's when I got my real education of customer service and professionalism, what it looks like at its finest, what sets you apart from the other students that you were in school with. I feel like the lowering of hours to 1,000, if we move forward with this, it keeps barbers interested in going to barber school rather than taking the course of going to cosmetology school. It keeps our schools striving, and it doesn't take away from our craft and the history of barbering. But I do understand wanting to hold firm on the 1,500 hours, but I also don't want to lose the passion that we have in our new barbers coming up. I don't want that to be a detriment to losing them from going to barbering school to cosmetology school.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, James Bowens. So I'm originally from Ohio, Toledo, Ohio, and my first barber license, I believe I'm 50. I just turned 50 this year, so my mind is failing me a little bit. But
Oh, man.
I think our hours were 1,400, if I'm not mistaken. Then I moved to Michigan. I got my license up there, and there was a reciprocity situation, so I didn't have to go to any school in there. Then I moved down here, and my concern is, on one side, we're looking at this as if we don't want to do this because they're doing that. But when I hear things like continuing education, that sounds like we're doing this because they're doing it. And this is just my personal opinion. I've been in the industry for 27 years, and I still scour YouTube, and I'm always looking to see what other barbers are doing, asking questions, because it's an ongoing thing. And I just feel like if we don't want to, me personally, I don't think we should drop down to 1,000 hours, but I think we need to revisit possibly maybe 1,400 hours, find out what the total amount is for cosmetology and the crossover, whatever those hours. What is it going to be? 13?
Well, it'll be 1,003, so it'll be 1,300.
So I think it would be fair to drop down 100 to 1,400, and not at all to say we're doing this because they're doing it, but we have to face it. People are making choices in our industry to go to cosmetology and just consider themselves a men's groomer and not a barber. And I mean, I know plenty of people that are doing that now. So I feel that we do have to visit the idea if we want to stay relevant, because I feel like if we stay at 1,500 hours, I have the idea that it's going to water down our industry, because we're just in an instant society right now. People want to do what they want to reach a destination, but they're trying to find shorter ways to do it. So who cares if I go to cosmetology school to get to be able to cut hair? The ultimate goal is to cut hair and make money. So if I have to go to cos school to do it, then especially if it's shorter hours. So that's why I feel like we need to stay competitive and not do identically what they're doing. But I feel that I think 1,400 hours would be fair.
So advisory board members,
Please.
I just wanted to make
Bring
sure,
it home.
just because we've heard from everybody at this point,
Mhm.
there seems to be a general consensus that there should be some
Change.
move from the majority.
Yes.
So my question would be now, since Mr. Bowens has brought it up, what does that move look like? Of the models in front of you, what does that move then look like if you do make one?
This is Brian
I
Francis,
move?
or just maybe framing it a
Can I-
different way.
can I
Mr.
move?
Bowens, would you like to make a motion to do that? And if it's seconded, take a vote and just keep going through the process.
So what you want is a motion from
Yeah,
one of
I know
us?
what I want.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I would.
Off record. She
So,
blasted me.
Mr. Bowen, I appreciate what you're saying, and I think I still don't understand what the difference would be between a 1,400 and a 1,300, like requiring 100. It seems a little bit, like, I don't think that necessarily, that 100 hours has to do with the integrity would make that much of a difference. Just my opinion in looking at the difference in the cosmetology requirements and the barbering. It's interesting because we do shaving, which they do not, which obviously is going to require some extra time. But man, they do a lot of coloring, a lot more perming, a lot more styling. I mean, they're learning these highlighting techniques that most barbers never learn. A lot more time on coloring and chemical services, and they're able to get that done within 1,000 hours. So, with respect and appreciation, I would like to actually make a motion that we vote on putting forward all of the rule changes recommended, and as well as accepting the 1,000-hour Model A, just sending them to the Texas Registry for the rule change.
So Ms. Hatch makes a motion to, for the 1,000 hours.
As well as the other rule recommendations.
Anybody have a second?
I have a second. Michelle Wasser.
Michelle Wasser has a second.
Gonna call for a vote?
So let's call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
So you have 3 of your 2, which is the majority. So we're gonna move forward with the 1,000-hour publication going forward for Model A.
Can you,
Mr. Chairman, let's do a roll call.
please,
Just
roll call of who said what?
yes.
Okay. Michelle Wasser.
Michelle Wasser is for the change.
Next. James.
James Bowens against.
Ron Jemison Jr. 4.
Jenny Hatch, 4.
Ron Weathers against.
Got it.
So because we're going to make the suggested change of moving down to 1,000 hours, I just want to point out there are a few places in rules that we haven't touched that I will adjust to make sure that the changes are in order. That would be 82.21B, where it's referenced to 1,500. These might not be in your packets because it's not suggested already. 82.74D2, 82.120 subsection D, and L. There's the one question that I have, that if you're going to do that suggestion down there's in one of those areas. I apologize. D. So currently D states that the curriculum for a Class A certificate in a private or public post-secondary school consists of, and I will make the change so now it says 1,000 hours to be completed in the course of not less than, currently it is 9. Would you like to make the subsequent change down to
I'm sorry. Say that.
6?
What was that
as
again?
well? D,
It was
months.
months?
The months
Oh.
required to do it.
Oh, yes.
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 Right, right.
6.
Yes, if we're gonna, yes, if that's gonna be adjusted, then it'll be 6.
Okay.
Yes.
And again, these are all for publication. They're not final decisions. They will go out before the Texas Register. They will sit for 30 days. And Ms.
Right,
Jetty,
that's
you made a motion for all of the rule set, right?
All of
Yes.
the
Right,
rules that you
okay.
recommended, yes.
So all of the rules that we discussed, the 1,000 hours suggested Model A that was in your packet, and then the subsequent changes that I mentioned where I will change 15 to 1,000 and then move 9 months to 6
6.
months. And 82.120.
Yes.
Good?
Yes. Okay. So does that wrap up H for us? That wraps up H, item H?
Yes, item H is.
Item H is done?
Can I make a motion for the next meeting? We talk about ongoing continuing education?
That's
So-
the next item.
Okay, okay.
Coming up. Next item is coming, man.
Okay.
Okay. Please, go ahead,
No,
go
that's
ahead.
fine. No, and then what you'll also have when you do make those motions for the next item, you'll have these comments back as well. So we'll go through the comments that you receive on your rule set that go out.
Okay, all right.
Thank you very
Thank y'all.
much.
Thank you. Okay, we're almost finished, guys. We're not finished yet, but we're gonna, item I is recommendations for agenda items for the next advisory board meeting.
I make a motion for us to have on discussion continuing education for barbering as part of our next advisory board meeting.
Mr. Chairman, we can
We don't
definitely
need to vote
include it
on
on
it.
there.
Yeah, we
Ms.
just
Weathers,
waited.
keep in mind that at the department level, we won't be able to affect that change. It's going to require statutory change, but it is a conversation that we can definitely engage in. And I've got a feeling that our friends from Sunset will be listening carefully to said conversation, so, yes, we can definitely have that.
And one other motion for us to discuss instructor licensing, that number of hours. What should we do with that?
That'll be again statutory as well, correct? As far as changes,
We
that'll
can
be
definitely,
statutory.
we can have the conversation on there. and
We can,
We
we
will
can.
craft it accordingly.
Okay, all right. I like it. I'm with it. Okay, instructor hours.
Mr. Chairman, the staff will bring back the staff reports.
Mhm.
We'll obviously have the comments resulting from the publication of the rules.
Yes.
Those are probably the main two items.
That will be on the agenda for next time.
Yes, sir.
No doubt. All right. Any other recommendations for the next meeting? All right. All right, it seemed like I kept y'all here for about 2.5 hours almost. Huh? Okay. Item J, let's have a discussion, date and time. Ms. Anna, can you help us out for the next advisory board meeting? Because we need some time, right, in between what just happened?
Yes, sir, we're looking at February sometime.
Okay.
And, Mr. Chairman, we will line that up accordingly. We're going to get the rules published
Right.
around public comment, and we'll get that back, and we'll have dates sent out to the members, probably somewhere in January, for probably a late January or early February meeting.
Okay, okay, good. Because I know it goes through a period of time, okay. Well, I thank everybody for coming today, this morning, should I say, the ones that drove far and the ones that drove near. It was a very informative meeting, and I guess they threw me in the fire that I'm chairman now, because this was a big one. But as we move forward, I just want everybody to know that nothing is final as of yet. But it does pay to turn up and to speak out and let your voice be heard. I think everyone, as I mentioned before, the people that come out and show up, I mean, the ones that can show up, it's great to see the numbers come out. And I think if we start doing more of this, I think the summit was just a great example of what we have going forward. And it's showing that the barber industry is not dead, it's alive and kicking, because for so long I used to always see the cosmetology room filled, and now we're getting there with the barber. So I'm very, very happy for that, and you should be very proud of the fact of showing up. And so without further ado, we want to thank all of our staff of TDLR for coming out as well. And the birthday girl, Miss Rebecca, make sure you turn up and do your thing. 21 is a good age. It's a good age to come, and you can drink more water, actually. All right. So we'll see you next time. Make sure y'all stay posted on the Facebook for TDLR so they'll show the information and keep out there educating. Meeting's adjourned.